Want to get into the NFC North rapidly because yet another division that I think the range of outcomes could be pretty wide depending on what we get out of guys that are pretty fairly unproven. If we start out here and just look at what we're getting from a betting perspective, Mike, I mean, this is a year we are entering this season with the favorites in the division as the Detroit Lions. And this is something that we look at and we say, hey, look, we have been fooled before by some of these teams that have had one kind of good season. But I think whenever you really look at the NFC North, the Lions, at least the roster on paper, is probably the best one out there. Plus 145, the best number you're going to find out there on the Lions to win the division. If you like the Vikings, you can still find a 3-1 on them. If you like the Packers, you can find a 4-1. And if you like the Bears, plus 430 still exists out there. So let's start with the favorites here in the Lions. And Jared Goff, I'm not taking anything away from Jared Goff. Jared Goff played fantastic last season. Jared Goff played within himself and certainly eliminated a lot of the silly turnovers that were happening at the beginning of the year with the Lions and looked like a really competent quarterback down the stretch for this team. Now, is that going to repeat itself? And Mike, that's the big question for me with this Lions team. And I know the Lions hype is loud, it is proud, and everybody loves this Lions squad heading into the year. But we have a one-season sample of a Jared Goff that played within himself and looked good for the vast majority of the year. We saw glimpses of good Jared Goff when he was with the Rams, and typically that good glimpse always turned to something way worse for a multiple-game stretch. And so I am not willing to just say that, this Jared Goff has turned a new leaf. This is the new Jared Goff. He is definitely going to be at least an upper half quarterback in the NFL. And the weird thing about it, I guess, whenever you look at the depth of the quarterbacks in the NFC right now, and when I say that kind of tongue in cheek, I mean, Jared Goff might actually be in the conversation as one of the better 3 or 4 quarterbacks actually in the NFC when we really kind of break things down to it. And I'm just not willing to say that that's necessarily going to repeat here this season.
Just one of 3 NFC quarterbacks that have ever been in a Super Bowl. Him, Hurts, and Stafford, the only 3 NFC quarterbacks ever to play in a Super Bowl. Look, Jared Goff to me is a big question mark here. I think if the Lions get 80% of what they got from Jared Goff last year, they have to be exceptionally happy. They do have all the pieces on the offense to be very good again on that side of the football. They picked up Gibbs in the draft, a little high for me, but I think he does fit the offense fairly well. This is a across the board top 5 offensive line, which is a huge positive for them. Now, the depth on the offensive line, not wonderful. If they start having injuries on the interior of this offensive line, they will be in trouble. And they also have good wide receivers. So you have to like what they have from a skill position perspective. So Jared Goff has all the pieces to succeed there. You also have Ben Johnson, a second-year offensive coordinator. He was very good for them last year. It'll be interesting to see if anyone adjusts to his general play-calling styles and if there are any changes to how they defend Ben Johnson's offense in Detroit this year. To me, the biggest question marks on the defensive side of the ball. Look, this defense was bad last year, and there is no reason to think they're going to get better. If you look at PFF, they don't have a single player above replacement grade in the secondary again this year. They drafted an interior linebacker in their first-round pick. That's not really going to help you in today's NFL. They have 2 outside edge rushers. You really have to think Hutchinson's going to take a step forward if you think that's going to give the ability for this secondary to be able to cover people, because you need a pass rush to make up for this secondary. Even if this Lions offense is as good as they were last year, I think this defense is as bad as they were last year. And people forget this team was awful early in the season. They were 1-7 before making a late run, and everyone remembers them beating the Packers in the last week. I would love to know what the number would be if they had made the playoffs and gotten trounced by Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think people would be nearly as high on this Lions team.
Yeah, you take a look, and I'm trying to get there. And like, I think the Williams suspension hurts pretty badly, right? And I mean, I was hoping cooler heads would prevail. I thought maybe the 6 would get booted down to 2 or 3 or something like that. But I mean, 6 games without your real kind of field stretcher guy. And you know, Mike, the thing is I think Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of snuck up on people last year. I think people looked at this little smaller type receiver coming out of the slot, and they're like, this guy's not going to do any damage to us. And then, of course, he goes off and just has his career year. He's not going to sneak up on anybody this year. Like, and without Williams out on the field, they can really focus defensive efforts on Amon-Ra St. Brown. And so I just wonder how efficient this offense can be, and at least until Williams comes back. Certainly, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to see a ton of attention. I think Gibbs might end up catching a ton of balls out of the backfield, right? I mean, I think like this might be one of those deals where you get very bullish on Gibbs early in the season, and as far as like kind of these rushing, receiving prop numbers and things like that, because I think we might find scenarios in which Jared Goff is looking the way of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not open. He's got a rookie tight end who we typically see these tight ends need at least, half the season to kind of really fit in. I think it was a good pick. I like Laporta, but I mean, I think it's going to take him a little bit to adjust to the NFL. I think Gibbs might be kind of like the play for me for the Lions, just like is on a week-to-week basis, because I think he might end up having to be used for Goff to kind of check the ball down.
Yeah, I like Gibbs' receptions totals over early specifically because you saw a lot of checkdowns last year in this offense. It's something that Ben Johnson liked. He likes running screens as well. So you might see quite a few receptions. I think it's one of the reasons why they reached for Gibbs is they felt that he could be a viable target out of the backfield as well. Other key with this Lions team is how they get out of the gate. You look at this schedule. They've got Kansas City to open up. They're going to be their 7-point dog right now on the board. That's a very, very tough game at Kansas City. They got Seattle and Atlanta right back to back after that. And then at Green Bay. They need to get out of that stretch 2-2. And I think it's going to be a tall task to get out of that stretch 2-2. So how they open this schedule this season is going to be important. To me, if you're a Lions fan, if you're a Lions backer, I would wait until week 4 to play the team total over. You have Carolina, Tampa, Baltimore, and then Vegas with both Carolina and Vegas at home in that second half before your bye. After week 4, if you're sitting there at 1-3, you're going to be able to get a team total over here somewhere in that 6.5 range. And I think that's when you want to jump in on the Lions.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not as bullish on the Lions as a lot of people are out there.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.